Hi, this is Becky with Icing on Top Becky's Cakes, and today we're going to make the basket weave and the rope for the flower basket. And right here, this is a star tip number 21, and then I have a basket weave tip, which is number 48. And I'm going to use a coupler on my piping bag so that I can just exchange these once I finish the other one. Now the basket weave, you start by making a straight line. You can go top to bottom or bottom to top. I usually just go bottom to top, straight up. And then we're going to make lines across. We're going to start a little over and go drag it a little farther past the line. And then we're going to keep a space the size of our basket weave tip in between. Then we make another line and we just completely lap it from both sides, leaving that space the size of the basket weave tip in between. And then once we have all our lines across, we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to make a line, but this time we're going to make the line covering the ends of our across lines. So we're going to go straight up, cover these across lines. And now we're going to fill those gaps. And we're going to do the exact same across lines, only we're going to fill those gaps. Now I wipe with a paper towel each time so that the tip is always clean, otherwise it's going to smear and you're not going to see those little lines that make up the basket weave. And just going to pull these straight across. And you don't want to press it in too much, so you kind of just let it build as you pull your way across, because if you push it in too far into the previous line, you're going to kind of mess up part of that line. So just kind of build it right over the top, pull it right over the top, and then end it into the cake. Now if you notice the cake is crumb coated, that just helps the buttercream piping stick easier and not fall off. And I do the same thing when I pipe the Russian piping tips of the flowers on top. Now if you want the recipe for the buttercream I use here, I will put a link to my recipe down in the description. And one of the things with piping buttercream, you don't want as many air bubbles. I can see a few tiny ones, but this one's really good if you don't want those air bubbles in there. The main key is just to make sure you're not whipping in a bunch of air once you mix it. But yeah, anyway, you can see the description down below and there will be a link to that buttercream recipe. And as you go, you'll just start to feel the pattern of it, and so it makes it really easy and rhythmic after you get the handle on it. And you can even practice on a parchment paper or something before you put it on the cake to make it easier, or if you just completely flop and you're like, no, this isn't working, you can just scrape it off and go again, and it can, because it's, you know, buttercream, so it'll just be a clean slate. Okay, now as we get to the back of the cake, we want to tie this up this loose end. Now this will definitely be our back of the cake, but you can very discreetly make this last line here, and then we're going to try to tie it together. Now this part is not going to be perfectly looking like the rest of the basket, but again, this is going to be the back of the cake, but you can kind of try to weave it together as best you can. Now I'm going to take off my basket weave tip and I'm going to put on that star tip that I had. And then we are going to make the rope around the bottom and the top. Now the rope around the bottom and the top is going to be the same style rope, but it's going to be in a different direction. The rope on the bottom is going to be upright towards the cake, and the rope around the top is going to be flat downwards to wrap around the top of the cake. So the S is how we're going to start. We're going to make an S with our buttercream. We're going to apply pressure, make a fat S on its side, and then into the curvature of the last S, we're just going to make the next S. So basically, there are a bunch of sideways S's that are standing up against the cake. And you're just going to do that all the way around the bottom. Now around the top, we're going to make the S, but we're going to do it down so that they're flat onto the cake. We do the S, and you kind of see how it looks like it's the top of an actual basket, kind of like that rope effect that you see around the top of a basket. So again, you just make the S, and in the bottom half of the S in the curvature, you make the next S. And again, once you get the pattern going, it becomes a lot easier. And then I'm going to fill the top of this basket with flowers using a Russian piping tip. So if you want to see how I do that, you can check out my video about piping flowers with a Russian piping tip. And then we can complete this cake.